We need another Far Cry 2, and here's why. I figured a change of scenery would be nice for this video, so I made a Far Cry 2-esque backdrop. I hope you guys like it. Anyway, a few months ago I played Far Cry 2 for the first time, and it completely blew me away. For some reason, a game from 2008 had more advanced mechanics and features than most games I had played from 2024, such as the buddy system, the physics, the overall chaos, the gritty story which took a back seat for most of the game, the tough-as-nails gameplay which kept me engaged for the entire time from start to finish, and the extreme immersion that never took me out of the world. When the credits started rolling, I felt a sense of almost emptiness knowing how it ended. But the overwhelming thought that stuck in my mind since I've played it was the thought that I've played nothing like Far Cry 2, before or even after playing it. I've played first-person shooters before, heck, I've played a few Far Cry games before, but nothing got close to recreating the feeling or the mechanics or the gameplay of Far Cry 2. They were just never the same. I think a reason for that is that Far Cry 2 is in essence a game which is just a jumble of maybe 3 or 4 good systems put together, which work seamlessly together to procedurally generate player-made stories. The game is then disguised as an extremely punishing shooter, which is probably why Far Cry 3 is so different from Far Cry 2, since Far Cry 2 is definitely not for everyone, as most people at launch, and even to this day, find it too punishing and difficult, and just don't connect to the world and its systems, and end up finding the game too repetitive and frustrating to keep playing, especially on console, as on console you don't have the quick save option, which means that you can only save once every 1 to 2 hours on average, which causes players to rapidly rage quit, as when you die you get sent back to your last save. Pair that with a malaria system and you have a recipe for killing off half your fanbase before getting into the main bulk of the game. I'd say a majority of the game's issues stem from technical limitations, although the save system is still pretty bad even considering that, as most games had already figured out a good save system by this point. But to be fair, the aforementioned buddy system more than makes up for it, and I'd just love to see it in a newer release. For those who haven't played Far Cry 2, the buddy system is just one of Far Cry 2's standout features. That means that if you help or save a side character in Far Cry 2, they become one of your buddies, which means that the next time you die, they can come and save you by reviving you. But if they die, you're given 3 options. One being just to put them out of their misery, another is to try and put pressure on their wounds and hope that there's a slim chance that they can survive, and the last is to use one of your finite syringes to revive them. If any of your buddies die, however, it's a permadeath, and there is no way for you to get them back other than by reloading a past save. In addition, as you do more with your buddy, the stuff you do with them is written in your journal so that you can remember all of the cool missions you did together. And I almost forgot, but when you do certain story missions, if you have certain buddies, they can offer a more fun optional version of the mission, which are usually much more interesting than the normal story missions, and highlight each of your buddies' personalities. Now I could keep going on and on about the sheer complexity and cool factor of this single system, but I'd much rather just share a moment in Far Cry 2 that I had that stuck with me vividly. I was doing a side mission with one of my buddies when we got ambushed from behind and in front. A fire started and was getting closer and I was panicking. My buddy was shot and I went over to revive them with one of my syringes. It worked like normal and we both ran for cover. When a new enemy came from the side and shot me, my buddy was there to bring me back. But whilst doing so, a stray bullet shot them and they were downed again. I went back to save them again, and I used one of my syringes, but they were still bleeding out. I used another. Then I was about to use my last syringe trying to bring them back to life, when they grabbed my arm, stopping me, and then just bled out. I've never experienced something so insane in a game where I truly felt powerless as I realized that there was nothing I could do to bring them back. And that character is now permanently dead for the rest of my playthrough. On top of all that, after escaping the ambush and making it to a safe house to save my game, one of my other buddies was there who mentioned that they were sorry for my loss, and then referenced a couple missions that I went on with that specific buddy. This singular system blew me away. The amount of carefully thought out detail is insane and there's truly nothing else like it currently out. Now I could continue absolutely glazing Far Cry 2 for the next hour or two, but that wasn't the purpose of this video. The main purpose of this video is just to kind of notify people of this gap in the market that I would really love to see filled, where an indie studio could potentially make a spiritual successor to Far Cry 2 that I feel could do pretty well, considering that from my experience there is still a market for this kind of game. Now, I'm not saying that I'd love to see the most insane first-person shooter with tons of features, including Far Cry 2's features. All that this game really needs to do at the end of the day is just stand out in the modern market, as even if it only fills a niche in the first-person shooter genre, it would still be better than nothing. The main things I'd love to see improved would be some newer graphics, since we can do so much better than the P filter that is currently covered over the game, and a better save system, because the current one in Far Cry 2 was outdated before it released. Now I'll admit that I've only scratched the surface of the levels of complexity in the gameplay features of Far Cry 2 during this video, so I just recommend playing the game if you haven't already, especially if you're into more punishing, hardcore, gritty shooters, or enjoy games set in extremely immersive settings, as it has a huge amount of physicality in it, unlike many other games. Now before I end this video, I'd just like to talk about something linked to Far Cry 2 that I've purchased but I'm unable to find any information on, with the idea that you guys might have a better idea of what this is, or maybe someone watching this video knows something I don't. But I bought an official Far Cry 2 bag according to the seller, which was only handed out to select developers who worked on Far Cry 2. I wanted to do some research before and after buying it to confirm whether this is true or not, but the only information that I could find was a post on some kind of forum that confirms that this is a real thing that happened, and another random post which said that there was only 50 or so made, and that some have been lost, meaning that this bag could very well be extremely rare for all I know. Although the main reason I bought it is literally just because I thought it was a really cool piece of merchandise for a game that's severely underrated. Anyway, that's enough about my silly bag. Honestly, there's still a lot more I want to talk about on this topic, so I might make a part 2 if you guys want to see that. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments, as I'll happily answer them. If you're still here, I'd recommend subscribing to my channel, as it really supports me. Anyway, I'm your host Ethan, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.